Hi, this is Mr. Max with Sankofa Mathematics. So I'm looking at paper 1 of 2023, the one that was written recently by the grade 11s. So what you need for this paper is geometrical instruments, which implies there is going to be a question that involves constructions. And then obviously the usual instructions are there. Um, the one that I'm interested in is this second last one. They say even the answer is not accurate, or for example, if the answer is not exact, then the degree of accuracy that you must follow, you must give your answers to three significant figures. However, if you are working with angles, they must be given to one decimal place. And then if there are calculations that involve you to use the value of pi, like for example finding the area of a circle and such, then you have to use the pi value on your calculator, or they then recommend you use the value of 3.142. Right, let's just go directly and get onto it. So I'm starting with question 1. It says write down the place value of 9 in this number. So that 9 over there is 9 hundredths. So basically it's 9 hundredths, which you can go ahead and simplify. So a lot of ways you can write that is either you write it as 0.09, or you can even write it out and say 9 hundredths. That is the hundredths with a th at the end. Okay, so I said simplify, but this is already in its simplest form. Okay, then you have to write this as a mixed number. Well, of course, grab your calculator so you do not make mistakes. So you have 39 upon 7. So if you hit equal to and you shift and you hit the fraction button again, the SD to decimal, can you see that you have 5 and 4 upon 7? 5 and 4 over 7. Okay, do not get these type of questions wrong. Two prime numbers, this is recalling question, so you need to know it. 83 is a prime number, as well as 89 is a prime number. Okay, remember prime number is just a number with two factors. For this one, you just use your calculator and you give your answer to two decimal places. So it's basically calculator skills that they are testing here. So you've got 4 times. Well, if your calculator has a virtual display like this, you should not have a problem. Make sure that your calculator in degree mode, because you have sine of 100 degrees, and then you have got sine 100. Okay, go ahead and close that, and then you say minus 3. Of course, I can go ahead and close this and say minus 3 upon 5. Hit equal to, so you get that long decimal, which I would recommend that you write it down. So you have got 0.81878462024. Write your full calculator display and then go and write your answer to the required degree of accuracy that they are asking. Question 5, write an algebraic expression for the sum of, well, this is nothing but x plus 3y. Of course, another learner can see 3y plus x, still the same thing. Okay, right. So when you look at question 6, very important that you remember that the coefficient of x is nothing but 3 over 5. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of that 3 over 5 by simply multiplying both sides by the inverse, which is 5 over 3. So if you do that, then you are ending up with a scenario that x equals to 9/10 times 5 over 3. Of course, you can use a calculator from here on, but I see that 3 goes to itself 1 times and 3 goes there 3 times. 5 goes there once and 5 goes here 2 times. So the answer is 3 halves, or you can give it as 1.5. Any one of those would do. Okay, right. You remember you can always pause the video if you feel that I'm going too fast. Question 7, line B passes through the point negative 2, 5 and they say that line is perpendicular to line y equals to 2x minus 3, as you can see in the diagram. One thing that you should know about perpendicular gradients is that the product of perpendicular gradients gives you -1. So if this gradient is 2, then the gradient of the line that we're looking for, the gradient of line B would be the reciprocal of 2, which is a half. And since this one is 2, remember it has to have the opposite sign, okay? Because the way you need to check them is that you know that that gradient of 2 times -1/2 should always give you a product of -1. Okay, so if you have the gradient of one, you can find the gradient of the other one. So any case, that now says to me that the equation of line B can be written as y equals to -1/2 of x plus c. Now, in order for me to find what that value of c is, which is what we call the y-intercept, you have this common point that is on that line. So you're going to take that point and you're going to substitute it. So I'm just going to write that point down, -2,5. And we're going to substitute this point in here for x as well as for y. So that is y equals to -1/2 and x is -2 plus c in order for us to find the y-intercept. Now, if you do so, this is going to be 1. So you have got 5 equals to 1 plus c. That gives me that value of c is nothing but 4. So our equation finally is nothing but y equals to -1/2x or -0.5x plus 4. Okay, anything equivalent to that. So you have got an inequality that you need to solve. So you need to be very careful with inequalities. So first of all, let us remove the brackets. So that is 16. That's -24x. So it's 8 times 3. Then you have a -4. And here you must be very careful because now I'm multiplying that -4. And when you multiply a negative number with a negative number, the answer becomes positive. So 4 times 2, that is giving you 8x less than equal to 0. So let's clean this up. So when we have the numbers here, we have got -24 plus 8x. That gives us -16x. 16 minus 4, that's going to give you 12 less than equal to 0. At the end of the day, -16x less than equal to -12. Now, you must remember these are inequalities, these are not equations, so please do not come and put an equal sign. And now I'm dividing by a negative coefficient. And once you divide by a negative, that inequality sign should be reversed. So x is now going to be greater than or equal to -12 upon -16. So a negative into a negative is a positive number. So x here is greater than or equal to 3/4 or 0.5. However you want to write it, please you must remember that you must change that inequality sign around. Okay, question 9. It says that Gwendolyn had 1,050 Namibian dollars. She gave 5%. So when you give money away or certain thing away, I suppose that it deduction in that percentage. So there are many ways you can do this. They're asking what is the rest that she is keeping. So I'll know that it now represents 95% of 1050. And you can go ahead and you can punch that on into your calculator. So 95% of 0.0595 times 1050. Of course, that gives you $997.50. Okay, right. So if you were, if some people would be calculating 5% of 1050, so you might see that you can get a mark for $52.50, but $52.50 represent 5%. So maybe for this you might get 1 mark. You still have to subtract this from the 1050, okay, so that we can find out the the rest of the money that is left. Let's go ahead and start with question 10. Mr. Stein bought a bookcase for 1,200 Namibian dollars and he sold it for 1,440, which means there is a profit there. So the question asks you to calculate the percentage profit, so no doubt that you know there is a profit made. So let's find that actual profit by taking 1,440, subtract 1,200. Now this is always over the original amount, and you can multiply that by 100. Okay, so at the end of the day, you have 240 over 1,200. You multiply that by 100. Either way, you get to 20%. Question 11. It is given that p of x is equal to 4x minus 7, that function, straight line function, and q of x is equal to x cubed, which is a cubic function. Find p of negative 2. So that means when you go to p, so p of negative 2, everywhere where you have an x, you are going to replace that x by negative 2. So this is just the value that you have to get. Of course, if you then go ahead and you multiply out, you're going to have negative 15. Right, now they are saying that the whole q of x, this whole equation here, right, should equal, so x cubed should equal to 2,197. So that gives me an idea. That means I need to find the cube root of 2,197. So you can go ahead and you say x is equal to the cube root of 2,197. Or I will say x cubed equals to 2,197. Then I will see that 2,197 can be written as a power of its prime factors, which is 13 cubed. Okay, so that is x cubed equals to 13 cubed. And if the bases are the same, I mean, if the indices are equal, therefore the bases are the same, so x would be 13. Okay, either way, you can find the cube root. Make sure that you do find the cube root of 2,197, and you still will get 13 as an answer. Okay, so that takes care of 11b. Question 12, there is some simple interest here involved. Fatima invested 4,000 Namibian dollars when the rate of simple interest was 8% per year. At the end of 2 years, she had a total of 4,500. Calculate the value of R. Now, you have the 4,000, which was her investment, multiplied by the percentage, which is given as a rate out of 100. That was for 2 years. So we now need to find the value of R. Now, this is the amount, and the word amount is where I need to put my emphasis on. Because if you were to find the amount would be that interest that is generated from this formula. It's going to be the interest plus the investment, which we call the principal. So amount, really, the amount will be interest. So this is the interest, this part here. Okay, this is how we normally calculate the interest, simple interest. Then we have to add the 4,000 because that is the initial investment, and that should give us the amount of 4,500. So if we were to clean up this side, we would be getting an ATR if we were to do so. Okay, so that one is just do a little bit of maths by dividing by 100. That's 40 times 2, it's 80R. Then we add 4,000, and that should give us 4,500. So the idea here is to make R the subject or to solve the equation for R. And I'm just going to continue over here. So it's 80R is equal to 4,500, take away 4,000, and 80R is equal to 500. Therefore, R would be equal to 500 divided by 80, okay? Which is naturally the same as 25 over 4. Of course, 25 over 4 is 6 1/4, so 6.25%. Okay, that brings me to question 13, right? Remember, this paper consists of 30 odd some questions, so we need to get going. A bus sets off at 6 minutes to 11 on a journey to Omboloka. The journey takes 2 hours and 15 minutes. So if you were departing at 10:54, the journey takes 2 hours and 15 minutes. Let me just go ahead and add. So that is 9, that is 6, that is 12:69. But we don't talk about 12:69 in terms of time. This is already more than an hour, so I need to remove that hour, and if I do so, I'll have to add. So that brings me adding 1 hour to 12, that is 13, and of course 09. So the answer here is 1309. You can also use your time, of course, so you can say 10 hours, and you use this button here, 54 seconds, minutes, and you add 2 hours and 15 minutes. Of course, you're going to see that you have 13 hours and 9 minutes, and then you just go ahead then and write it as 13 hours and 9 minutes in the way that we write it. Okay, good. Now, part B, they say the distance to Omboloka is 150 kilometers. You are supposed to calculate the average speed, and remember, average speed is the total distance. In this particular case, is 150 kilometers, and that already gives you a hint that kilometers must be over time. Kilometers divided by time. That's what this business means here. KM, it means kilometers divided by the time. That's what this made. So you already have your sort of guide over there. So the total time, now if you were to now find how, because it took the person 2 hours and 15 minutes, so you must be a bit careful that 2 hours and 15 minutes is written like this, okay? Or you can change and find the decimal equivalent of that. So at the end of the day, it's just a matter of punching in. Don't give yourselves a headache, all right? So you see my use of my calculator, please. So I am now putting a mixed number by pressing shift and that in there. So I have 2 hours and 15 upon 60. Now 15 out of 60 is nothing but a quarter. So I have 200 upon 3. So the answer is 200 over 3, which you can actually go ahead then and find its decimal equivalence, which is 66.6, and that 6 is recurring. So of course I can write it as 66 and 2/3 kilometers. Anything equal to that, 66 and 2/3 kilometer per hour. That is the speed, the average speed. Question 14. Mrs. Khan won money in a competition. She divides the money among herself. So it's Mrs. Khan, so I'll say the wife, the husband, and the daughter. The wife gets the bigger portion, 4 out of the parts. If you add the total parts, is 8. 4 plus 3 plus 1 is 8. So the husband gets 3 out of the 8 parts, and the daughter gets 1 out of the 8 parts. Obviously, now they say the husband has 1,800, so husband gets 1,800. Good. Now they want to find out the total amount of money that she has won in this competition. So here's the key. From 3 to 1,800, I need to find out by what it increased by. So it's always division. And you will realize that it's 600. So that implies to find the amount for the wife, I must multiply 4 by 600 and 1 by 600 as well. Of course, there are many other ways that you can do so. So wife gets 600 times 4, okay? So she gets 2,400. The hubby, we know the hubby gets 1,008, and the daughter, okay, don't worry about the spelling, gets 1 out of the 8 parts, so 1 times 600. So the daughter gets 600. So the sum of all of these is what the total amount is. Of course, there are many ways that you can calculate this. You can, as I said, put 4 over 8 which is a half, and you can then multiply that. So you can say, okay, the parts, add the parts, okay? So this is another way to do it. You get 4 plus 3 plus 1, which gives you 8. Husband, H um, gets 3. Oh no, wife, sorry. We know already what husband is getting. So you can go ahead and say, okay, the wife gets 4 out of 8 times. Here's the problem with this method. We don't know what the total amount of money is, so we're not going to use that. Okay, I'm not going to use that. So that one is totally not applicable here because we don't know what the total amount of money is, and we have to use this particular method in order for us to find the individual um, sort of allocation, and then we add it all up. Okay, once we're given the 4,800 and the question asks us, what does the wife get? What does the husband get? What does the daughter get? Then you can use that method. All right, let's continue. The Venn diagrams, question 15. The Venn diagram shows two sets of learners. Learner P. P is the set of learners who are doing physics. B is the set of learners who are doing biology. Shade, there's a shade. B complement intersection. B P complement intersection. B complement. Now, this can also be written as, so I have got P complement. What is not in P intersection B complement is the same thing as the union of P and B complement. So that's also one way you can do that. Another way, of course, with the shading questions, and maybe I should be doing that because I brought that same question, I've brought it down so that we can have more space to work. So another way that you can do this, let me just bring in what I said. I said this is the same as you don't have to rather change it the way I said. P union B complement is the same thing. Right, I would suppose put numbers here like 1, 2, 3, 4 in each region. Now, write down what is P complement. That means what is, now write it underneath here, what is not in P. What is not in P is 1 and 4, okay? Intersection, now this intersection means what they share. All right, let's write down what is not in B. And what is not in B is 1 and 2. Now again, as I said, what does this here mean? It means what do they share? And what you can see, they share a 1, okay? So this is 1. So I'm going to shade where 1 is, the region where 1 is, okay? That means my shading is going to be here, everywhere that is being represented by 1. Is that clear? All right, so that's where I am shading. So just make sure that it's 1 mark. Don't take more than a minute to do this, so come back to it after you have done everything in the paper. Anyway, that is the shaded part. All right, so let me go back to the question that was for 1 mark. The question then say, in a class of 35 learners, 18 study physics, 20 study biology, 2 study neither. Right, they say find the number of learners who study biology. Now this is what what I advise you to do. Okay, I advise you to add all the values. Okay, so add all the values. Add 18 plus 20 plus 2, because it's not within that, add all the values, and then subtract them from the universal set, subtract them from 35. And if you do that, you're going to get 5 as an answer. So 5 learners represented in this region. The 2 will be in this region because they do neither. And I know that the ones who do physics are 18, and the one who do biology, who are only doing biology, is 20. So the region that you have over here, you need to understand the region that you have over here would be 18 minus 5, because this whole thing over here is 18. So this one will only be 13. Right, so maybe I should just write it in nicely. So this one here would be 18 minus 5. This one will be 20 minus the 5. So at the end of the day, I have over here 13 and I have over here 15. Can you see that? Right, so when they are now asking me how many learners are only doing biology, it's only this part, this region here, and you can see it's only 50 learners. Okay, or you can simply say 20 minus 5. Okay, in order for you to know how I get to that. Total number of learners who are doing biology minus 5 who are doing both. Question 16. A chocolate costs 3.2 or €3.20, I guess, and £5 and 38 cents in a different country that they are using pounds. When the exchange rate was £1 is equivalent to €1 and 8 cents. So what I like to do with these questions, I like to write down the conversion, and maybe I use the ratio method. So £1 is equivalent to 1.08. So if I take the £5 over here, so 5.38 pounds, and I'm going to find out what is the euro equivalence of that. Then I can use cross multiplication because these things are directly proportional to each other. So you can go ahead and do that. So this is going to be x equals to 1.08 times 5.38. So x would be, so let's grab our calculator, make sure we get the correct values. 1.08 times 5.38. That gives me 5.8104. Okay, 5.8104. So this is the equivalence of if you have £5. So this means that if you have 5.38 pounds, that equates to 5.8104 euros. Now, the difference between the prices, you find the difference between the prices by subtracting the euros from the euros. So you'll be saying 5.8104 minus 3.20 over there. Okay? So go ahead then and let's do the subtraction. So this is going to be minus 3.2, of course, giving me an answer of 2.6104. So that is 2.6104 euros. Okay, which you can go ahead and give to 3 significant figure, which is 2.61 euros. Okay. Right, anything equating to that. For 2 marks is quite a lot of work. Of course, you can go ahead and compare answers and say, Mr. Max, I don't quite agree with you with this, and let's discuss it, okay? Question 17, they say that we have to, the length of these are given. Here is something that you should now also remember. There's a missing length over here. And I don't know if you can see that missing length. Let's just see if we can maybe bring that in. Can you see this missing length over here? Right, so I also know that this is 10 over here. And if I was to say, for example, if I was to complete this part here, or let's rather remove that. Let's just bring in a dash, a dotted line perhaps. So if you look at this part here, if I was to do that, you do realize that this is supposed to be 10 plus 8 centimeters, because the whole thing should give you 18. So this is 8 centimeters missing here over that side. Okay, now that being said, they are saying each of these lengths are measured correct to the nearest centimeter. Nearest centimeter, 1 centimeter divided by 2 is 0.5. They want you to calculate the upper bound for the perimeter. So that means you don't just add all these numbers, you have to find the upper bound and add all the upper bounds together. And here's the thing, the upper bound for 18 will be 18.5 because 18 plus 0.5. The upper bound on this side will also be 18.5. The upper bound here will be 8.5, so it will be 8.5 for this distance here, and this is 10.5, and this is obviously 10.5. So everything in red needs to be collected or added together. And if you do so, you would see that you have two 18.5s, so that is 18.5. You can multiply by 2 or simply write them down. You see that you have two 8.5s, 8.5 plus 8.5, and you have two 10.5. So basically, to find the upper bound of when you are adding the perimeter, you add upper bounds and upper bounds and upper bounds and upper bounds together. All right, if you do that, you punch in the values, you're going to have an answer of 75. Let's just make sure we have got 2 times 18.5. Okay, 18.5. You can actually take out the 2 as a common factor, but I will just write it like this, just for clarity's sake, 8.5, or you can go 8.5 plus 8.5, yeah, the way I said it, plus 2 of 10.5s added together. Put them in parentheses, it gives you the same outcome. Okay, so 75 centimeters. Question 18. Now I'm going to do this question using 3 different methods. Okay, but it's for 2 marks. I'm doing it because there could be many ways that you can find the total surface area. So total surface area of this cuboid or rectangular prism will be 2 times LB plus 2 times LH plus 2 times BH. Now let's just add what I have. I have 2 times 8.5 times 5.2 plus 2 times 8.5 times 4.6 plus 2 times 5.2 times 4.6. Remember, you should not write in here. So at the end of the day, you have, if you do so, you have 2 times 107.22. So this answer here, if you multiply it, is 214.44. That's one way if you can recall the formula. Okay, right. So I will bring the same question, and perhaps I will do it slightly here. You'll see that I have added 2 pages. So this one is very straightforward. You can try this one if you wish to. I make myself a Y like so. Can you see that? And then I write the numbers at the end of those Y's. So I'll write here 8.5, 5.2, doesn't really matter how you write them. And these regions here will be the product of that. So I will have 8.5 times 5.2. Okay, that gives me 44.2. So 44.2 over there. And then I'll come back and I'll say, okay, the next one is 5.2 times 4.6. That gives me 23.92. 23.92. Then I will have 8.5 times 4.6. That gives me 39.1. So 39.1. Now I'm going to add these numbers together. I'm going to add this one and this one and this one. Would be half. You will see that it will be half of the answer over there. So if you do so, you have 39.1 plus 23.92 plus 44.2. If you hit that, you get 107.22. Okay, 107.22. Just go ahead, write it in. So what I did is I said 39.1 plus 23.92 plus 44.2. I said is 107.22. 107.22. Now, what that represents is half of my answer. All right, if you go back, you'll see that I had 107.22 over there. So I'll multiply that answer by 2. What is the reason for that? Well, let me just show you what the reason for that is. Let me just go back to my y. And if I was to extend it, you would see that that would be like an area for that rectangle there. That over there will be an area for that rectangle over there. This 39 will be an area for this rectangle over here. So they have got also another one. 39.1 is also on the back. 23.92 is on the other side. 42.4 is also 44.2 is also at the bottom, for example. So that means that I am going to say that the total surface area is going to be 2 times 107.22, which is spectacularly the same as my answer from the previous section. Right, another way that you can do this is I'm going to introduce you to a formula, and that is the formula total surface area equals to P, capital letter P, H, small letter, plus 2B. The P is the perimeter of the base, the H is the height of the prism from base to base, times 2 times the area of the base. Okay, and I have them over here. So the base, remember that? So it's the for those of you who are perhaps following and using the y equals mx plus c textbook for success or straight line to success, I think they have done this on page 520, but they didn't really give you the formula the way I'm giving you. I just want to have a breakdown of everything. Okay, so it's longer for 2 marks, but it's worth going through. You agree? All right, so if I now have to fill in the values, because I have done so, the perimeter of the base, so that means I'm adding the 8.5 plus 5.2 plus 8.5 plus 5.2 like I did over here. I get 27.4. And I can identify my height. My height is nothing but 4.6 from, obviously, from my diagram. And then they say the area of the base, 2 of them, the area of the base is nothing but 8.5. So the area of the base is obviously this area over here. Okay, multiplied by 2, and then you get 44.2. So now, using my formula, TSA equals PH plus 2B. So it will be P, which is, I'm going to say 27.4. Let me just put everything in brackets. Okay, let's say we put, oh, okay. All right, so I'm just going to do this. Go back over here. Let's just clean that up. So clean it up again. So I'm going to say total surface area is the perimeter, which is 27. Like that. Okay, so the software is trying to do a little bit of problems for me. It's just because it's I'm going to write it a bit under where I have more space. All right, the annotator can act up sometimes. Total surface area is the perimeter, which is 27.4, times the height, which is 4.6, plus 2 times the area of the base that I've calculated, or 44.2. Well, if you punch that in, should arrive at the same answer. So let's grab our calculator and see if we get the same answer. So go again, you say, you can put times in between or just parentheses 27.4 parentheses 4.6 parentheses plus 2 parenthesis 44.2 parenthesis, and you get the same answer, 214.44. Okay, 214.44 centimeters square. So there's something about lateral area. Um, of course, you don't have to really know some of this terminology, but essentially it's that lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base that gives you the um, total surface area of this cuboid or the rectangular prism. Okay, but you agree with me, in all these 3 methods that I was using, this one perhaps with the y is easier. You can do that for any cuboid that you have, or you can use the method that you are, I think, quite familiar with, which is the one here. Okay, all right, so that takes me to question 9. So let's go to question 9. Remember, you can always pause the video and then you can sort of start over again. I said question 9, but it's question 19. Given that RS, vector RS is negative 3, 4, so that's the x component, we need to find 3 times that. So this is scalar multiplication. So scalar multiplication just implies that I must multiply that whole vector on top by 3, or it's extended 3 times, multiplication. So that is going to be every component will be multiplied by 3. Every component will be multiplied by 3. So I'm going to take the x component multiplied by 3 and the y component multiplied by 3. Okay, so 3 times that is negative 9, and 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, please remember these are not fractions, but it's a vector. So don't put a fraction line over there. To multiply a vector by a scalar, multiply the horizontal distance by that scalar as well as the vertical distance by the scalar. Horizontal distance, which is the x value here, multiplied by the scalar, the vertical distance multiplied by the scale. Okay, so scalar multiplication is actually the same as parallel vector, so it's just the same concept. All right, finding the magnitude of a vector. So I hope you still remember that the concept of Pythagoras comes in play here. So you take the x value, x squared plus y squared, that is the formula. So obviously this is going to therefore be, now you don't have to put it in the negative in there, but I'm going to put it anyway, because the reason I say that is 3 squared and negative 3 all squared is the same answer. So there's no need to put that negative here. But to avoid any sort of confusion, just put it there anyway, okay? So when you do that, you get a square root of 25. And square root of 25, you should know by now, is nothing but 5. So it could have been centimeters or whatever the units, but it's just 5 units. Question 20. In this diagram, AB is parallel to CE, angle BDE is equal to 86. Here's the thing though, parallel angles, you see that 86 here, 86 equals to M plus N, because these are alternate angles. Alternate angles, they are equal. So 2M equals to 86. Therefore, M will be 86 divided by 2, which gives you 43. Good. Now, if you go to N, if you look at N, N is equal to M. Can you see that little alternate there? And what is our M equal to? Of course, our M is equal to 43. So, N is also equal to 43. So, these answers for both is 43. Quite straightforward. Right, let's go to question 21. They say the diagram shows triangles A, B, and C. What is the special name of triangle D? Of course, you can see that the side is equal to that side, okay? And this is an isosceles triangle, all this space just for you to write isosceles. So this is an isosceles. ISOSCELES. Okay, a lot of students, they struggle with spelling of this word. Two triangles which are congruent. Maybe I must just write down, if one shape can become another, or if I want to say one can be placed on top of the other, okay, using either flips or turns or flips and or sliding, okay, slides, then the shapes are congruent. Then the shapes are congruent. I will use the word, perhaps just to simplify all of this. We say if you put one on top of the other, okay, you can say superimposed. One shape would be superimposed. And the only two triangles here that will really be congruent, obviously, it's just leaving you with A and C, because B, you can see, is enlargement or something else is happening over there. So triangle A and triangle C. Okay, so you can just go ahead and say, write it like this: triangle A and triangle C. Triangle A is congruent. That's the shape or the symbol we use for congruency to triangle C. Basically, it's just those two. Okay. Any way that you write it will be accepted. Good. Question 22. Now, the diagram shows triangle PQR. They say that obviously you can see from the information. The diagram shows triangle PQR, measure line PR. Of course, this is a scanned document. So even if I was to measure it using my software, my measurement will not be exact because there is some scale into that. Okay. This diagram is not to scale for other measurements, but for you to measure it from P to R, whatever that measurement is. If you have the question paper in front of you, and the question paper hasn't been scaled or anything, sometimes people make smaller versions to accommodate to have more on a page. But if you were to measure it and you have the actual document, you will realize that that is about 4.2 centimeters. Okay. Then part 2 says, using a straight edge and compasses only, construct the locus of points inside a triangle PQR which are the same distance from PR and RQ. Alright, so let me just go back in here. This is what I have. Using a straight edge, which is like a ruler, and a compass, you must construct the locus of points which are inside triangle PQR, and they are the same distance from PR and RQ. PR, RQ. That means we have to bisect the angle. So if it's given to you like PR, RQ, what is common here? R. So that angle R is what we need to do, okay, to find. So that means I'll take my compass like so, right? Maybe I'll adjust it a little bit smaller. And I am going to make myself an arc like so. You follow? Then I'll take my same compass and I put it over here. Now, you can adjust this one if you want to, or you can use the same. I'm going to use the same. And then I put it over at the other end. And I am going to bring it. Okay, my goodness. So now what I have done is I have changed. Let me just take that off. I have changed something that is let's just start all over, don't worry. So that is much easier for you to understand. Put that in the bin. And I'm going to put this one also in the bin. Okay, so let's start over. Right, so let's take my compass again. Maybe perhaps we'll make it a bit smaller. Take my compass again, I put it over here and out. And you can go ahead and you can, okay, let's adjust it properly. Got it, got it. Maybe like so. All right, and I'm going to bisect that. Are we together? So I believe you can do that if you want to. So I'm going to take my compass again, the same one. Obviously, I can now adjust it or use the same radius. So I will adjust it, or you can use the same radius. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to adjust it, so let me do that. And from that point, I'll make another arc like so. Sure, the same thing. Then I put it over here, and I am going to do the same thing there. Okay, so now I'm done with that. So now I'm going to take my ruler where that line meets, and obviously where from here the center and there. So you're going to take obviously and you're going to measure. So let's see. So we're going to take your ruler and you're going to draw a line, and perhaps let's choose that color. There we have it. There we go. Can you see that we have our answer now? So we have bisected for 2 marks. Do not erase your arcs. Okay, right. So try to remember that. Let's go back to the document. And of course, we are now going to do part C. They say calculate the bearing of R from P. So the bearing of R from, if they say bearing of R from P, I always like to say go to what is after the word from. So we go to P, and north line, we are looking for this whole angle over there. Right, so there's a few things that you should remember. You have angles between parallel lines. So this 167 plus whatever this angle is here should give you 180, okay, because they are supplementary. So that means I would say 180 minus 167, that gives you 13 degrees. So this red one here, this is nothing but 13 degrees. Right, so my answer is going to be 13 degrees plus 88. Okay, so it will be a 3-figure, I believe. And if it's a 3-figure, no need to put a 0 in front of it. So in this particular case, we said it was 13 degrees plus 88 degrees, which is 101 degrees. Right, that brings me to question 23. They say simplify. So let's do the bracket here. 2 into 8, that is 4. Y to the power 6 divided by y to the power 4. You subtract the indices, it's y to the power 4. Minus, if you multiply here, you have 2y to the power 4. Y squared times y squared, you add the indices. So now you have like terms where you're only going to subtract the coefficients together. Expand and simplify. Of course, binomial expansion, there's so many ways you can do it. You can say 4m, and then you have m minus 7 over here, plus 3, and then you have m minus 7. Then this gives you 4m squared plus minus 28m plus 3m minus 21. And all of this can simplify to 4m squared minus 25m minus 21. Okay, of course, if you are familiar with other methods of expanding, that's either if you say, okay, I can do this times that, some people like that, and you arrive at this answer and then you simplify. Much quicker. Try now, question 25, you can see, you are supposed to make E the subject of the formula. So first you do is you get rid of the square root by squaring both sides. So you'll be left with E minus V over R. Okay. So basically I'm squaring here. Square and the square root cancel. I'm squaring there. So I'm going to multiply by R. So I have I square times R. I square times R. Go to R here. This is going to give me E minus V. And then I get that minus V over that E equals to R I square plus V. Got it? So anyway you write it. V plus R I square, same answer. Separate logs, this is a multiplication here. So you have log 80 plus log root x. Log 80 plus log x raised to the power of a half from root form to that. So this answer is log 80 plus, using the power law that half comes in front, log x. I think these ones will be independent mark for log 80 and then mark for half log x, but there should be a plus in between there anyway. That's the only way you can separate them, if you have logs of numbers that are being multiplied together. Right as a single fraction, one of the things that I always say, please, where you have expressions of this nature, put brackets there. The LCM, you will see that the LCM here is nothing but 3x minus 5. Don't have to multiply it out. Okay. Then the one on top you're going to multiply. So you have got x minus 5. You have a plus here and 3. So if you were now to look, this one needs a whole x minus 5. So you have x minus 5. This one needs to multiply by 3. So you have times 3 over here. Okay. Right. So please do not cancel out because you have multiple terms on top. So you can go ahead and multiply that binomial. It will be x squared minus 5x minus 5x minus 5x minus 5x plus 25 plus 9 all over 3x minus 5. You'll realize I'm not multiplying. There's no need to multiply out that stuff. Eventually, if I was to simplify the numerator, I would have x squared minus 10x plus 34. That's 25 plus 9. Everything over 3 and then x minus 5. This is sufficient enough. Some people go ahead and they multiply out the numerator, which is totally not necessary, but you are going to get marks as well. So I'll just say, or x squared minus 10x plus 34 all over 3x minus 15. Still the same thing, but not necessary. Okay. Okay, that brings me to question 28. They say 4 lines are shown on the grid. I just have to reduce this because the grid is quite big on this platform. And what they're saying is, which of the letters A to E lie in the region y is less than or equal to 2, x plus y is less than or equal to 10, and y is less than or equal to x. So you can see that all of these is less than or equal to, less than or equal to. So I'm going to write here so you can just know. For any line or where you have y is less than or equal to, the wanted region is below the line. So if you were to shade, for example, you will shade the opposite side. But we're not shading here. I'm just writing it anyway down. So let's look. The wanted region is below the line. Okay. So you have so we are now looking for which one satisfy all of them. So let me just say I'm shading. So y plus x, let's say it was less than or equal to. So below is what I would want to, so I'm going to shade above that. For example, for this one, y equals to, or y is less than or equal to x, y is less than or equal to x, this one here, okay, which is being represented by that line y equals to x. So the one that the region is below, you would be shading, for example, if you were to shade, you would be shading above that. That's the opposite direction I'm talking about. Let's come to this one here. Y is less than or equal to 2, which is represented by this line here, y equals to 2. So the wanted region is the region that is below that. So if you were to shade, you're going to shade above that. So above that is where you are shading, okay? There is also another that is being added here. So I see, remember this is also shaded from before. So can you see where my D, my region D is? So because they are saying which particular, you also have the line x equals to 2, but that line has been drawn for you. X equals to 2, so the required region will be at D. So any point at D will satisfy any one of these inequalities, and you can actually go ahead and test them. Okay, let's say we take a point here where D is. Let's say we take the point 4, 1. See that point 4, 1, and substitute it into this. Okay, where you have an X and where you have a Y, you would see that you will get something similar. Here, Y is 4. Okay, is 4 not less than? I mean, Y is 1. Can you see that Y is 1? If 1 is less than or equal to 2, let's go here. When we add them, when you add 4 plus 1, we get an answer that is less than 10. When you put 1 for Y, Y will be less than what X is. So 1 is less than or equal to 4. So any of these points in where D is, and if you plug in the X and Y values of those points, you will see that it satisfies all those three inequalities. Now, when they are saying to you, and I'm going to take the shading stuff away. Okay, I just use that shading to allow me to sort of get to a point. When they are saying you are supposed to find the minimum value, and this is something very important. When you are told to find the minimum value, also take away this point that I have introduced over here, but you can of course remember when they ask you to find the minimum value, and I'll write that down. We find the minimum value I'm going to say minimum value of the expression x plus y by using the vertices, these are the corner points of the feasible region. And the feasible region is where my D is there. But they're saying for A, feasible region for A. Okay? We're going to, along the line, as long as you have solid lines, and you can see that all of these lines are solid. So if I go to where that A is, so I'm going to look at this particular vertex, I'm going to look at that vertex, and I'm going to look at that vertex. Are we together? So if we take this one here, you have a point 2, 2. So let's see if I say, for example, at this point 2, 2, what is x plus y gonna give me? It will give me 2 plus 2, which is 4. Let's bring in another color. If we take this point over here, which is the point 5, 5, okay, so at the point 5, 5, x plus y will be 10. 5 plus 5 will be 10. Let's bring in another point at the point 8, 2, 8 comma 2. Then you have x plus y would be 8, which is y. X is 2 plus 8, you get 10. So the minimum value, you agree with me, is this one. So my answer here is 4. Okay. It involves a bit of things that you need to do, but because I'm explaining it, okay, should be getting that in um, less than a minute. All right, so we have got matrices here. We've got 4 times every element in matrix should be multiplied by that scalar. So again, it implies that I say, so 4w would be 4 times 0, 4 times negative 3, 4 times 3, and 4 times 0. Okay, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 times 0 is 0. Okay, now they say the second part you're supposed to subtract. For you to do subtraction, the matrices must be of the same order. You can see matrix W is a 2 by 2 matrix. Matrix X is a 2 by 2 matrix. 2 rows, 2 columns. Okay, and now we're just going to subtract the numbers in the matching positions, which means if I was to show it, in fact, I would be saying, okay, matrix W, I'm going to say 0 minus 1, okay, 0 minus 1. Then here you have negative 3 minus negative 2, negative 3 minus negative 2, and you have 3 minus 0, and 0 minus 2. That's all. So that R1 is negative 1 over here. This is going to be negative 1 as well if you do the subtraction. This is 3, take away nothing, it's 3. Nothing minus 2 is just minus 2, and that is the required answer. For part C, when you are doing matrix multiplication, look at, you have to have, they must be compatible. The matrices must be compatible. If you look at matrix X is a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, if you go to matrix X, 2 rows and 2 columns. Matrix Y is a 2 by 1 matrix. Okay, so the other one is a 2 by 1 matrix. What is important here is that 2 numbers in the middle here, they must be equal, and you can see that they are indeed equal. Our answer, this one's over here, our resultant matrix will be a 2 by 1 matrix. 2 by 1 matrix is typically 2 rows and 1 column, so that's only going to be two values over there. That is what our resultant matrix will be. Okay, right, so we can go ahead and we can multiply. So again, maybe because of space, I will maybe add a page. Okay, so I'm just going to add a page. Insert, just bear with me. I'm just going to insert a page. Insert a page on this software so that we can find it. Okay, so what we are supposed to calculate, we have matrix X, which is 1, negative 2, 0, 2. We have matrix Y, which is 14, 5, and we are supposed to calculate X, Y. Okay, the way you calculate X, Y, you say, you take obviously this row here, so you're gonna have, let's take first 1 times 14, 1 times 14, 1 times 14, and then plus negative 2 times 5. So I'm taking this row here and then I multiply it with this column here. Okay, 1 times 14 plus negative 2 times 5. Are we together? Now if I'm done with that, then I'm going to do the second one, which is I'm now going to take 0, the second row. So I'm going to say 0 times 14 plus 2 times 5. 2 times 5. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to see what we are getting. So we're going to have 14 minus 10 on top here. We have a 0 plus 10 under. Okay, so eventually if we were to simplify this answer here, you get 410 as the final answer. Okay, 410. All right, so let's just go back and put our answer up there. So the answer is 410, which is a 2 by 1 matrix, as I have indicated. Good. Question 30. Write down the order of rotational symmetry of the shape. Now, if a plane figure is said to have rotational symmetry of a certain order, if the plane figure maps onto itself, it means it then coincides with itself, it fits on top, like it hasn't turned at all. It must now go under, let's say, rotations to stated angles about a common center. So this is the center. If you were to rotate this, let's say 90 degrees, you see the shaded part will be over here and it will not look exactly the way it was. But if you were to rotate it again, so that is a whole rotation of 180 degrees. So that means 360, the whole thing, divided by 180 will tell you that it's 2. Okay? So the order of rotation is 2. It's 2 times that you turn it and the shape will look exactly the same, about that center over there. So when you shade this part, when you turn this part, it comes here, no, it goes here, of course. So that's 180, coming back 360, so it's 2. The order of rotation is 2. Question, this question over here, a little bit tricky in its application. Because if you were to look at these two containers, and if you were thinking of the containers in real life, although the instruction here says not to scale, if someone was to say a 10 or a 1, let's say a 1.25 liter container, but its height is less than a ruler, half of a ruler. Can you see that? But it's 1.25 liters. Then if you have a 10 liter here, which is something that you need to carry, it's quite heavy, right? What will its height be? So in terms of the way the containers are, although it says not to scale, can make the question a little bit distorted when you are thinking of it outside the box. But here's the thing that I perhaps have to bring into effect. And I will write that stuff down over here. When two plane figures are similar, when two figures are similar, okay, their corresponding sides are proportional. So we'll take the volume of the big figure, okay, the volume of the big figure, and if I divide it by the volume of the small figure, whatever those sides are, because we are dealing with volume, and I started with the big one on top because the unknown is the big part. That's why the big is on top, because the unknown of the big center of the big container. So I will take the side of big. So I'm going to look for a side of the big figure over the side of the small figure, and I'm going to cube that. So let me bring in another page to continue explaining my concept that I'm introducing there. Insert page. So that means if I was to also look at what you have, and you also need to understand the relationship that you have between capacity. You know that 1,000 cubic centimeter is equal to 1 liter, and one container is 1.25 liters. If you multiply that by 1,000, you have 1,250 cubic centimeter. That's the volume and capacity. The other one is 10 liters. If you multiply that by 1,000, you get 4 zeros, which is 10,000 cubic centimeters. Now they are volume that I was talking about. All right. So if you now look at the volume that I have and I compare those volumes, I have the big one, the volume is 10,000 here. The volume of the big one, the volume of the small one is 1,250. It should equal to the sides that I have. And if I go back to my sides there, I have got the 15.5 and an H. So just go back to the container, to the containers, to the shapes. I've got my 15.5, which is the side of the small one, and the side of the big one is what we are supposed to find, which is H. All right, so I'm going to come down. So big one on top, which is H. Smaller one, which is 15.5. And this should be cubed. Now here's the thing. If you were to do this, you're going to get an answer of 8 over 1. Okay? If you were to say 10,000 divided by 1,250, you get 8. So effectively, this is 8 over 1. Okay, not over 11. My goodness. This is 8 or 8 over 1 because I'm comparing fractions. That's why I'm writing it over 1. This is h cubed over 15.5 cubed, distributing that. So we now want to find the value of h. So if you do cross multiplication, and I'll come back to this because this is very important, because all my explanations here of changing capacity to volume was not needed, and I'll show you exactly at the other part of the answer, but I just had to do it so that maybe at least it can work for you to see. So cross multiply, you have h cubed equals to 8 times 15.5 cubed. And whatever that answer is, and you can grab your calculator, you will realize that that answer would be, let's have 8. Okay, let's first clean all of this up. 8 times 15.5 cubed, you get 29,791. 29,791. Of course, 29,791, if you also know, it's 31 times 31. So h cube is 31 cube. Drop that, then h equals to 31. Or you can find the cube root of that. Okay, or you could have said, if you don't want to do that, you could have said the cube root of 29,791. You still get the same answer. However, all of these wasn't necessary. I just had to explain the concept. So what I would do is I would say, okay, I would then say the h cubed, so if I was to compare big one, which is 10, small one, 1.25, and I just take the capacity, equals to h cubed over 15.5 cubed. 10 divided by 1.25 is nothing but 8. So if you were to check, no need to go and so you say 10 divided by 1.25. You get 8. Can you see that? So that would have been 8 over 1 equals to h cubed over 15.5 cubed. Again, you can then go ahead and you do your cross multiplication, and you would be arriving at the same answer like what I had from my previous work. Then h would be the cube root of 29,791. So that is 31 centimeters. Right, now if you were to think to yourself how this is 31 centimeters, which is like a ruler, but it's 10 liters, so this is already a weird looking container. But if you were to think in terms of that, and also look confusing, like maybe this was times by itself twice to get to that, but that's not the concept here. Okay, you have to bring in the concept of that proportionality of the sides by looking at the volumes, hence the cube coming in, because the relationship between capacity and volume. All right, good. Let's go to question 32. Remember, I said you can always pause the video, and that allows you to find the answers. Angle DEC. So we have got points A, B, D, and E. They lie on the circle. Diameter is AD, very important. But that is not a center, that is just a diameter line. The reason for that is because the diameter and this radius here, they make 90 degrees. That diameter and this tangent, diameter and the tangent makes 90 degrees. Angle between a tangent and a diameter is 90 degrees. So I'm just going to say here, tangent is perpendicular to radius. Okay, so that's what that means. Very important that I write that down. And let's see, what else do I know? Then obviously angles in the same segment are right here in the same segment are equal. So angles in the same segment. So which angles are we talking about? Let's take this line. Let me introduce a line BD. For example, this is an example. So if I was to draw B to D, that region below that chord is a segment. This here is also a segment. And what do we mean by angles in the same segment? 65 is in this segment on the other side of that line, that chord BD. Then this angle over here would also be 65 because they are in the same segment. Okay, so angle DEC is 65 degrees. Angles in the same segment. Then, if you now look at this triangle over here, you see that they are asking us to find, for part 2, they say find angle GDE, which is this particular angle over here, GDE. It's this angle that they ask us to calculate. And to find this angle, we would say whatever the whole thing here is supposed to be 90 degrees. But let's look on this triangle DCE. If that is 83, 65, then this angle over here is 32. And 32 comes from the angle sum of a triangle. Okay, that is, you take 180, subtract 83, subtract 65, I get my 32. So if that is the case, then what this little angle is in green should be 90 degrees minus 32 to find that little angle over there. And if you do so, you realize that this angle is nothing but 58 degrees. All right, here we go, and we are now starting with statistics. Finding the median from a frequency table. You have got a few information that perhaps I will write. One of them is the middle position. We use the formula n plus 1 over 2, where n is the position, the total number of values. And in this case, if you add the frequencies, you get 20, as already indicated over here. So n, the total number of data, number of data. You must just follow if my handwriting is terrible for you. It's 20. Therefore, n equals to 20. Having used what I have used over here, that means I would say that 20 plus 1 over 2, that's 10.5. So the median time, which is what we are supposed to find, the median time is the mean of the data between the 10th and the 11th position. 10th and the 11th position. So in the table, we will start adding the frequencies from top to bottom until you get to the 10th and 11th terms. Then we'll look at that row, that time row, and then that will be our median interval time. So 1 plus 7 is already 8. 8 plus 4 will take you to 12. So position 10 and 11 will be in this particular row. So our median time is the times between 50 to 59. That is where the median time will lie. Question 34. Simon and Sheila take a test. The probability that Simon passes a quarter. Probability that Sheila passes is 2/3. Calculate the probability that they both will fail. So these are two independent events. Let us see. Let's write Simon. We know that the probability that he is going to pass is 1 over 4, and this is going to be fail. Then we have Sheila. I just want to do the same thing. The probability that she will pass and fail. So the probability that Simon will pass is 1/4. The probability that Sheila will pass is 2/3. So what is the probability that Simon will fail? So probability that Simon fail, you don't actually need to write it down. You can see that you know that this probability is over here and this one should add up to 1, but it would be then 1 minus 1/4, which makes it 3/4. So therefore this is 3/4. The probability that Sheila will fail, it will be 1 minus the probability that she passes, and that is nothing but 1/3. So this one here is 1/3. Right, so probability for fail, so you can just write it over here. So probability that both will fail and fail would be the product of 3/4 and 1/3. 3 over 4 times 1 over 3. And if you do that, you get 1 over 4 as an answer, which is our answer over there. Okay? Two independent events, that's how you find it. Good. Question 35, which is the last question of this paper. In the study, some people will ask which kind of music they like. The pie chart shows the result. 200 people love hip-hop. Then you have got calculate the number of people who love rock music. Hip-hop is represented by 150 out of, let's write it like this, 150 out of 360 degrees is equal to the people of 200, but we don't know the total number of people. So I'm going to put letter X over there. So we can go ahead and simplify this. All right, cross multiply if you want to. You can do that. So what I'm calculating here is the total number of people, so which is 150x equals to 360 times 200, and then x is going to be, now it's going to be 360 divided by 150 times 200. That's why you will see a lot of people are just going in here. They will just be taking 360 over 150 times 200 to find the number of people, the total number of people. In this particular case, I had to show it by using equivalent fractions. Right, so the total number of people, you will see that it's 480 people. So let me just make sure. So you have got 360, 36 over 15. Okay, we can say 360 over 150, doesn't matter, times 200, 480 people. So there are 480 people all in all. So now if you want to find the total people, or the people who are doing representing rock music, rock music, um, maybe I will just bring in a different color. So for rock music, the angle is 120 degrees. So 120 over 360, 120 over 360 times the number of people that we know are there. Okay, so that is 120, oopsie, 120 over 360. Then you multiply that with 480. Okay, that's 160 people. So 160 people are doing, or they love rock music. Right, that is the end of this question paper. Hopefully it was helpful. If there are some answers that you agree or you do not agree with, please do um, DM me, or you are writing something on YouTube and I might respond to it. Um, I will be uploading tomorrow paper 2. So grade 10s, you can also use this, and people who are going to write these ordinary level papers in future as revision. Good luck with your studies. Hopefully this was helpful.